One of the biggest mistakes that I see beginners make, literally all of the time, is they just blunder pieces. For example, in a position like this, it's fairly equal. You know, both sides have chances, especially at a lower elo. Maybe white has a slight advantage because of this central pawn, but you know, equal position is essentially what I'm trying to say. In this position, you know, there are a few ideas for white. Maybe you can start pushing these pawns up the board. Maybe you can, you know, re-centralize your queen to a better square. Um, all kinds of ideas. Maybe put your queen on a square like this. All kinds of ideas. Nice and fun. Um, yeah, what you shouldn't do in this position is make a random move, like this, for example, and think, oh, I'm attacking the queen. Maybe my opponent is going to miss the fact that I'm attacking their queen. Because your one-dimensional way of thinking in, oh, let's just attack the queen, all that did just then was blunder this bishop because you decided to move this pawn, which was protecting it. Now, every single move, the board changes. The game of chess is different. So every single move, you should think, how am I changing the board? In this instance, this move changes the board by undefending the bishop. Undefending? Not defending. I'm going to go with undefending. Don't care if it's not a word. Come at me. And so, like I said, your opponent can just take it. And so you need to be aware, essentially, every single move, what pieces can be taken and what pieces have just, you know, been relieved of their defenders. And what your move has just done on the position and how that impacts everything in the game, because that is how chess is played. Now, on to the next position. This is actually from a student of mine. If you want to work with me and have your wonderful games and wonderful blunders like this featured on the channel, then check out the top link in the description. We can work together and play chess, and I'll help you beat all your friends, improve your elo, all that good stuff. But anyway, this is a position from one of their games. It looks very nice. You know, they've got the queen, their rook on a good square. That's not how a bishop moves. Their pieces, very central, very nice. They've got a lead in development. What they should do in this position is, you know, start pushing these pawns, start creating some kind of kingside attack, and, you know, just start hammering home that advantage. You know, maybe they could even come something like knight here to threaten this pawn, threaten this bishop. All kinds of ideas, and all are very good because, like I said, they've got a lead in development, which we'll get into later. But what you shouldn't do in this position is, again, just see the queen and go, oh, I'm going to play a random move and just attack it. Because that just leaves the queen, not leaves the queen, leaves this bishop, again, undefended. And your opponent can just take it. Maybe the idea behind this, after something like this, and then you can start attacking. Okay, that's fine. But you should, again, always look to see how you've changed the position with your move. And you should always think that your opponent is going to just play the best move possible. You shouldn't think, oh, I'm moving my knight here, and oh, my opponent, that means my opponent's just going to move their queen back. You shouldn't assume your opponent's just going to play the first move that comes to your head or their head. You should always assume, you should look at this position and say, and just think, what is my opponent going to play in this position? What is the best move in this position that my opponent can play? And if you look at the position, you can just see that this piece is just hanging. The bishop can just be taken. So yeah, don't do that because beginners do that all the time. And if you can just eliminate that from your game, you can literally just climb high, like at least 200 points if you're below 1,000 elo, because everyone below 1,000 elo just loses pieces. And so if you don't do that and you do that, so if you lose pieces, if you just blunder pieces and you're at current elo, normally you play all right, but you just lose pieces. So you would be up here, but because you lose pieces, you're down here. If you just pay attention to the game, then you're not going to lose pieces, so you're just going to immediately gain about 200 elo points. And that's my experience in coaching people and all that stuff. So just pay attention. That is the main thing you got to do. Lock in and just beat people. Just beat people, because that's what we do on this channel. That's what we do on this channel. Anyway, next point is making random moves. It's sort of tied into the last one in that There's no thought behind moves. It's it's a one mover. It's a very linear way of thinking. It's, oh, this this knight is now attacking this queen. Let's move the knight here. Wow, great. You don't think beyond that. You don't think, oh, my opponent now needs to move this queen. Where are they going to move their queen to? Well, they're not going to move to any of these. Well, they're not going to move to any of. Oh my god, what is going on here? They're not going to move to any of these squares because that would just block the rooks in, right? So they're not going to move to any. Actually, I'm going to do something cool. Oh my days. Yeah, they're not going to move to any of. Nope. What's going on? Yeah, they're not going to move to any of these squares because yeah, it's going to block these rooks in. Can't move to this square because the queen can just take it. Can't move to this square because the knight can just take it. Can't move to this square because the pawn can just take it. Can't move to this square because, again, the queen can just take it. So the only square that leaves this queen to go is here. Now, when the queen moves here, what is the threat? Well, you're in check and they're attacking this knight. And you can try and block this knight, but they can just take it back and you can't take it back because, yeah, well done. So essentially, in this random move that you were like, oh, this is a great move, my opponent's going to lose their queen because they're not going to see me, you've basically just forced them to win your knight because you didn't plan and you didn't look ahead. So always have a kind of plan behind your moves. Never just move a piece because you think, oh, I'm going to put my opponent in check and that's the idea, or oh, I'm going to like attack my opponent's piece. Never just think that randomly, because thinking, oh, they're not going to see that I'm attacking their piece, that's not going to work. That's not going to work at higher levels. So you shouldn't think like that at lower levels. Instead, you should always have an idea behind your moves. In fact, a similar move, but a much better one, would just be to come here because it protects this, but it also centralizes your pieces, puts it in a very, very nice square, and maybe opens up this file so you can attack. Just stuff like that is just how you improve your elo and how you stop making mistakes and stop, blundering pieces. In the next position, no, that's not the next position. This is the next position. The next position, again, maybe you see here and you know that, well, you think you know that doubling pawns is always bad, and so you go, oh wow, I'm gonna double my opponent's pawns. Wow, now his king is so weak. Look at this. Wow. And then you go, oh, wow, I can check my opponent now. Whoa. Wow. Let's check my opponent. Great. Fantastic. So they move out of the way. And now you're like, okay, let's bring another piece into the game. This looks like a fine move. Yeah, it's a fine move. Sure. But now this weak king that you've made with this open file on the G file. Oh my God, voice crack. You didn't hear that. Anyway, this open G file, which was a weak king for your opponent, has now just become a firing range on your own king, and maybe you move the queen out the way, and bam, well done, you've just lost your queen because of this bishop just completely just dominating you from a distance. And yeah, not good, not a good look. And I mean, okay, in this position, maybe, okay, you come here, cool, great. What if your opponent doesn't see this? Let's just say for the sake of the position, and they see this checkmate. You're threatening this checkmate, so they come here to block it. Okay, and you go, wow, let's check my opponent. Great, wow, fantastic. So they play there because, well, they have to. But now they've just allowed their rook, well, you've just allowed their rook to come in behind, and now you've got a double whammy on the G file paired with the triple sniper whammy of this bishop. Not looking good. It's not looking good at all. And maybe in this position again, you're thinking, okay, let's just bring in some more pieces. But again, you're playing random moves. There's no cohesion to these moves. There's no, this bishop's here. It's not really doing anything. This knight, okay, you're trying to get it into the position. And this queen is just on the other side of the board, locked in behind all your opponent's pieces. And in this position, because maybe you're not thinking ahead, you're just, again, playing random moves, you miss that your opponent can take here and you can't actually take back because of this pin. And so, essentially, again, don't make random moves. Always have a thought process behind your moves. If that thought process turns out to be a bad thought process, then okay, that's fine. We can, over time work together and just level up that thought process. But if there's no thought process at all behind the moves, that's when there's a problem, because that's when you're not playing chess, you're just randomly moving pawns. Anyone can do that, or pieces, or whatever. So, yeah, that's the second mistake that beginners always make. On to the third, which is not developing your pieces. So, for example, this is a very common opening beginners play. The Italian game, bringing the bishop out, 2 knights, all of that good stuff. But now in this position, after your opponent plays this, you go, oh wow, I can actually pin this knight. I've seen the Ruy Lopez, and they pin the knight, and that can, lead to loads of fun stuff and all of that. So I'm going to play there now. So you play here, but what you've really done is you've just moved your bishop twice, when in fact you could have just moved your bishop once to that square. And in fact, on this move, you could have just moved your bishop here, and after this, we have the exact same position as here. These two positions are the exact same, apart from here, it's black to move, and here, it's white to move. Because in this position, white didn't waste what we call a tempo, where it's essentially a move. In chess, you want to have as much time as possible, so you can put your pieces on the best squares and launch an attack earlier, and essentially win the game, because you have more moves. You have a limited amount of moves, where you have the same amount of moves. If you can have more moves than your opponent, then you would do better, right? So don't waste moves on random moves like coming here and then coming here afterwards, because that just loses tempo, or the plural, tempi. So yeah, and okay, that's developing pieces and losing tempo, but let's continue the game for a little bit. So again, black just makes a normal developing move. They've got their pieces out like this. You make a random pawn move because you're scared of their bishop coming here, when in actuality it doesn't really matter, because if their bishop instead came here on this move, then you could play this, and if they exchange, then, well, they've just helped develop your piece. We'll get into that later. And if they come back, well, you can actually just push this away, and this bishop now is not really doing anything. So, in general, in the opening, when you can, you should move pieces instead of pawns. This just wastes a little bit of time, and it doesn't help your development. This bishop is still, locked behind these pawns. This rook still locked in the corner, and this king is still in the center. Whereas after this move, okay, this actually comes with tempo. Coming here forces this bishop to move, and so they move it back, and again they just develop another piece. Whereas white in this position, scared of trading, comes back. Again, what does that do? That loses tempo, because here white could have just come all the way back, and in this position, again, this is the exact same position as we have here. These two positions, again, are the same. Apart from in this position, it's white to move, and here it's black to move. So if white just moved all the way back here on the same move, instead of coming here and then here, then white would have an extra tempo and have more time to get their pieces out. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. So in a position like this, instead of wasting a tempo and coming back, maybe you could exchange. And I mean, maybe this isn't great because you give your opponent this pawn center, but it's just another chess position. Or you could come back and again not have to waste a tempo. But yeah, again, more moves being played here. The queen, your opponent has moved their queen. They've connected their rooks. All of their pieces, very central, very nice. These rooks are going to come onto these files probably, and very nice position for black. Whereas white still has all of these pieces not even moved. And after a move, say like this, you want to put your pieces on the best squares. So you want to put their pieces either here, challenging this bishop, here, challenging this knight. If you develop your piece here, all that's doing is cramping the whole position. This queen now can't move off the back rank because you just put this bishop here. If you come here, for example, and this trade, now again you've got these pawns in the center. This is very nice. You've got a square for your queen, and maybe you can start an attack. Basically, you want to place your pieces on good squares. is essentially the long and short of it, and you don't want to play your pieces, you don't want to move your pieces multiple times in the opening. These are just principles that shouldn't really be broken. Yes, there are a few exceptions, but as a beginner, you should generally just stick to these principles. Now, here's just a quick game, not even game, just a quick showcase, really, where black, okay, this is a Scandinavian, this is a fairly normal opening, and in this position, normally black would come here or here, but let's say black just sees this check, plays the check. White, because they watch these videos and are amazing at chess, starts, developing. Okay, they couldn't really do much else. So after here, you want to create a safe square for the queen. Again, they develop with tempo, forcing this queen to move. So, okay, we move the queen back, great. They castle, and I mean, you've heard to strike in the center, so they strike in the center. And here, after this exchange, again, white develops with tempo. Yes, they could have taken with the knight, but taking this way actually develops the queen, and so they develop the queen. And after something like this, okay, they finally black finally gets out this bishop, but now all of a sudden this rook is bearing down on the king, and so they think, oh, okay, let's block that. When in fact, if they'd come here with the knight, this would have been a lot better, because now they're actually preparing to castle, and this is a lot safer. They've developed another piece as opposed to, again, losing more tempo with bringing this bishop back. And after something like this, the opponent has just castled, and this is looking very, very nice for white. This king is still in the center. All of these pieces, again, disgusting on the back rank. All of these pieces just fantastic in the middle of the board, doing exactly what they should be doing, and this is just fantastic for white. I would much rather be white in this position than black. Just look at this position. That is amazing. That is amazing. That is what we want in chess when we play it. So yeah, don't do that. So what should you do? Well, again, this is the same opening as before. Well, slightly different, but the same kind of moves for white. Just develop. Put your pieces on good squares like this in the center. Again, here you could, okay, your opponent's attacking here, so you could come here. You could develop this and open up here. But in general, when you can move a piece in the opening, you should move a piece, because that's getting another piece off the back rank, getting it into the game, and attacking some squares. That's what you want to do. And so again, just making good moves, just simple chess. In the opening, that's when you should just play calm, simple moves. Now, when your opponent breaks an opening principle like this, for example, moving the same piece multiple times, that's when you should think, okay, what's their plan, first of all? Well, I mean, a threat that they do have is they want to maybe come bishop here and exploit this. So you could come here and prevent that, prevent bishop coming here. I mean, you can take, but I mean, we'll get onto that later. That just sort of creates this kind of strength that your opponent has. So you don't really want to do that. You don't want to create strength for your opponent. So yeah, you come here, h3. And after this exchange, you're doing very well. You're developing, again, you could take with the pawn, but if in doubt, you should move a piece, right? And so you take with the queen because you're moving a piece. And after a few more moves, again, you've connected these rooks. Very nice development, and this just looks very, very nice for white, as opposed to the previous example, this one here, where back here, this just did not look good for white at all. So yeah, that's the third principle. Make sure you develop your pieces, and yeah, because I see a lot of beginners making the mistake of not developing their pieces. So make sure that is not you. And the next example is trading. So here we have this example of a Sicilian, where this knight here is a very nice knight in the center of the board. It's a very nice piece. And this knight, okay, it's hitting the center, but it's not as nice as this knight. So what you should do in this position is keep the tension. Tension is when essentially there are pieces looking at each other that can take each other, but don't. Think of it like, I know, a crossbow, where you could fire it, or you could, keep it trained on the angle that you've got. You don't have to take. It's not checkers. You don't have to take. So if your piece is better than their piece, you shouldn't take. It makes sense, right? You don't want to trade off your good pieces for your opponent's bad pieces, because all that's left then is your opponent's good pieces and your bad pieces. So, for example, in this game, all that you've done by trading is help your opponent with moving their pawns towards the centre. And now d5 becomes a real threat on the board. Whereas before, if they played d5, you can just take it, and maybe they've got an isolated pawn after, I don't know, something like this. Now you know, you're threatening this pawn, it could become a weakness. Whereas now, after trading here, after a move like this, now they could come d5, sorry, I meant d5, and after these trades, all of a sudden, they're attacking your bishop again. This doesn't look so great. So, yeah, always be careful with trading, because you can activate your opponent's pieces when you trade. But anyway, let's continue the game. Maybe you come here, and after something like this, you think, oh, wow, okay, let's trade. Wow, great, this looks fantastic. But again, all you do when you trade, like this especially, is you remove your good piece. This bishop is a nice piece. You know, these dark square weaknesses can be taken advantage of by a bishop, by a dark squared bishop, and you just take it off the board. But also, not only that, but you also develop your opponent's queen. This queen is now looking at these weaknesses here, and this just doesn't look great for you now. I mean, it's not lost by any means, but you've just helped your opponent. You don't want to help your opponent because they're trying to beat you. So, yeah. After a few more moves, again, you see another piece, so you take it immediately. Again, all that does is allow your opponent's rook to eventually just get into the game very easily. And we're left with this position where this knight isn't that good of a knight. If you make some random move, like, I don't know, here, well, all of a sudden now your opponent can make a move like this. Actually, not in that position. Let's say you come here. Now your opponent can make a move like this, and this doesn't look great because they can take here. I mean, maybe I should have prepared this position a bit more, because I have just seen in this position there is this move which does pick up the bishop. But essentially what I'm trying to say is don't trade pieces, because you are going to leave the position with, well, first of all, with less juice in it. You want juice in the position, because that's how we create excitement, that's how we create opportunities for you to win. But also, if you trade off your good pieces, then you're not left with any more good pieces, is essentially the thought process behind it. Here's another example, and you know, this is a London system, a very common opening, and a big idea in the London system is to push here in the centre with e4. Now, you can take, and if you, in fact, just keep trading randomly, what you're left with is this position, where white has all of these pieces in the centre, and you have these pieces just absolutely sleeping in the corner of the board. In fact, they're even attacking your rook here, so you can't even come here. You're forced to bring your knight to a square like this or this. And this just doesn't look that good, whereas these pieces, bright in the centre, alive, breathing, nice and healthy pieces, where you want them. This position as white is very, very nice. This position as black, here, not so nice. It's all cramped, and white definitely has the advantage. I mean, there's still, again, juice in the position, but not really something you want to be doing. Maybe in this position as well, you could offer the queen trade, but, I mean, something like this, and again, you're left with your opponent's good pieces and these snoozing pieces, and so, of course, your opponent in this position has activity and can, for example, just take a free pawn, because your pieces aren't on good squares. So their pieces that are on good squares can take advantage of the position. Another example, this one I don't know, I just made this position and just, you know, made it a bit amusing maybe, because just to illustrate the point really, that you can just take all the juice out of the position, like I've been saying. For example here, there's loads of tension here in the centre. These pieces looking very nice. That's not how a knight moves. You know, a bit of tension between these bishops, these rooks as well, these queens maybe. And in just a few moves, you can just trade off every single piece here. And just look at the boring position that's left. This is most likely just going to be a draw. Again, I mean, there's a bit of juice in the position. It's quite an interesting rook end game. But this should just be a draw. Very boring. Whereas, I mean, even if we look at some of the positions here. Like, for example, why would you take this knight when this bishop is actually doing a very nice job at pinning this knight to this rook? And also this bishop here is creating a lot of tension in the center. You don't have to take a piece just because it's there. You can wait, and in this position, maybe even play a move like this. For example, this move, you know, if your opponent wants to take here, then you can just take here. And if they take back, well, congratulations, now you're up in exchange. And that's how tactics arise in the position. You don't win games by just trading everything off into a losing position or into a drawing position. You win games by coming up with tactics and putting your pieces on better squares, which you can't do if you have no pieces. So, yeah, that's the fourth one. And the last one, I mean, I can't really have a position to explain this one. I'll make myself maybe a little bit bigger. Essentially, time management. A lot of chess comes down to what time control you're playing. A lot of beginners, if they're playing bullet chess, play too slowly. A lot of people, if they're playing rapid chess or classical chess, play too quickly. The amount of beginner games I see where they're playing a 15-minute game and within the first 20 seconds they've made 20 moves and they've already lost the game because they've just played so quickly and just missed something that the opponent has played. If you have more time, it's there for you to use it. And so you can't be like, oh my god, I was playing really quickly and really well and I had so much time left on the clock, but then I lost. Because if you say that, then, well, that's just you being stupid. You had all of that time to think and you didn't use it. Similarly, on the other side, if you're playing a game and you're like, oh, but I got into a really good position, I was crushing him, and then I lost on time. Well, again, you're an idiot. You didn't use your time correctly. You didn't think ahead. You didn't plan your moves based on how to make best of the time. So what you should be doing is, first of all, if you're playing online on Blitz or Bullet or something like that, never be more than, you know, a minute ahead, a minute behind, or like 20 seconds or something like that. And if you are, just play some quick moves. Play some very quick pre-moves or just some waiting moves or something like that, and just make sure that your opponent can't just beat you on time. Just make some quick moves, essentially. Maybe trade down the position into an easier position so that you don't have to spend as much time. So there we have it, guys. There are 5 mistakes that I see beginners make all the time. And yeah, now that you've watched this video, never ever make those mistakes ever again. I will be watching. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Whatever you do on other people's YouTube channels, do that to mine, please. Check out the links in the description. Follow me on Instagram. Buy my coaching. Comment. Say I love you in the comments, please. It really boosts my ego. And goodbye.